focusing here on Mexico shame bomb. And again, this news coming out of the New York Times, it's really shocking and tragic. Mexico has uncovered multiple illegal camps used by the cartels to dispose of the victims. This is really something that highlights the brutal reality of organized crime across Mexico. It's really raising concerns about security, but also it's raising a lot of concerns about the government response and how it's impacting, these local communities. Daniel, what would you say that this discovery, one, says about the situation of crime, of organized cartel crime in Mexico, but two, what does the government response in this case also say about the situation?
Well, it speaks to the level of depravity that the cartels have reached here, and it also speaks to even though the current Mexican president Claudia Sheinbaum has been trying to avoid how much it's connected to the indifference that was shown to the cartels by Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the previous president of Mexico, same party, Morena. And so what's happened is that when this was discovered, this extermination camp in Jalisco, they found about almost 300 pairs of shoes. They had backpacks, bones, human remains, teeth, everything, right? And so you had this massive littering of evidence that this was an extermination camp. There was ovens as well, where they had, of course, disappeared the bodies. And so what happened was that there are these mothers, Wadi, they're called Madres Buscadoras, searcher mothers, who have been looking for their children who have disappeared off the face of the earth. And it's gotten so bad that they actually have created a support group of hundreds of these mothers across Mexico. And so they go to this site, trying to find desperately some kind of piece of evidence, that their child, ended here, right? Or could still be alive because it was recruited by the cartel, but trying to find a piece of clothing, a backpack, something, right? That would tell them that. Well, so what ended up happening was that the Sheinbaum administration ordered that this camp be bulldozed, and literally they covered over all the evidence that was there, trying to avoid the stigma that this was an extermination camp, almost for pure political self-interest, so that the scandal wouldn't blow up, but it did blow up. In fact, the social media went rampant about, the conspiracy theories, there's long suspected ties to the cartel by the Mexican government. The media, the Mexican media, the national media, like Carlos Lorete Mola, which is a very preeminent anchor of Mexico for Televisa, started to report on it. Verastegui, you had just a bunch of personalities, right? And so how did Sheinbaum react to this? So she started targeting the people that were posting social media, and her daily meetings in the morning called La Mañanera. She started attacking these folks, and she started trying to discredit the mothers, that what they saw was not true, that don't believe your lying eyes, that there was no evidence, and that these are not extermination camps. They were campos de adiestramiento, training camps, for the cartels. Even though her director of basically the equivalent of Homeland Security, Harfush, confirmed to the media in that mañanera, in one of those mañaneras, that indeed there was torture that occurred on that site, and there were murders of these kids who were recruited but refused to do the bidding of the cartels, were eliminated, and still she wouldn't recognize it. The New York Times called it extermination camps, media across Mexico. And so she has done everything to target the mothers, the social media folks, the opposition politicians, all to again, out of pure trying to protect herself. And people are wondering, why don't you target the cartels? Why are you wasting so much energy on these other folks, who are desperate to, find some kind of information about their children? It's just an incredible story. Yeah. It's unfolding as we speak. Mm-hmm. It could be the end of Sheinbaum.
But so what? But my question is, why though? Like, what's the upside in her trying to defend this so much? Why not say, you know what, maybe there was something going on here? What? It's almost like she's
So, do you remember when
defending the.
Harris put out that her first sort of slogan that this was about joy, this was about being happy? She's done the same thing. She put out a tweet that Mexico rates 20th or something in the happiest country in the world as this was occurring, basically saying just be happy with the country that you have. Don't worry about what's happening. So what she doesn't want to do, Daniel, to answer your question, is to stigmatize Mexico, that it's a cartel nation, right? That it's led or controlled by the cartels. And so she's doing everything in her power to try to diminish voices that lend to that narrative. And she is doing what she can to promote Mexico as this happy place where it's this incredible society where there's absolute peace. And she's trying to defend the philosophy of Andrés Manuel López Obrador that he called abrazos, no balas.
Well,
Hugs, not bullets. It was a failed strategy, and yet they're still trying to claim it.
Well, because you're saying it's she's trying to cover it up and whatever. I haven't heard anything about this on Twitter at all. I've seen nothing, so it's working, right? And I'm on Twitter all the time. But what I have seen about her on Twitter is that her approval rating is like 91% or something. Yeah. Is that also fake? Just like her trying to cover up that this isn't happening? Is it all fake, like just kind of?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, on Twitter, if you're not part of that algorithm, if you're not someone who searches typically for Western Hemisphere kind of issues or Mexico issues or Sheinbaum issues or Morena, this ain't going to come up, right? Yeah. Whatever you're into, that's what they're going to feed you, right? So, but if you put in Sheinbaum, if you write in on the search Jalisco extermination camps, you're gonna see, you're not gonna believe your eyes, right? And as to what's happening in Mexico, and the people are not gonna be quiet about it. This is not like in the past. She's not gonna be able to manipulate the media. People are angry over this, angry because you're not dealing with the problem, which is the cartels. You're focused on everything else. You're using up energies on trying to stifle voices, on shutting people up, on quieting the opposition, on blaming others and scapegoating when you should be focused on the cartels. And here's the interesting part about all this, Daniel. It's Donald Trump. It's because of tariffs that she's done anything to amp up her efforts to try to mitigate the harm and the damage that's being done by the cartels. It's because of Donald Trump that she turned in 29 cartel bosses. It's because of Donald Trump that she has increased the level of security and searches on the border. It's because of Donald Trump that she's found now these factories of methamphetamine, of fentanyl. And that's the fascinating part about this. It's not her own media or the folks, the mothers from Mexico who are the victims of this. It's because of pressure from Donald Trump.
Well, that's such an obvious winning issue, right? Being hard on crime, clearing out the cartels. Like, I don't believe her approval rating is 90%, but you know whose approval rating I do believe? Bukele, and his is like 90%. And what is he doing? He's leaning into rooting out all the criminals, all the crime. Even Trump is sending, our worst over there. You'd think she'd see, hey, people like this. They want safer Mexico, cartels getting hammered down. Why not just lean into that? I don't
here's
really
the fundamental question, now that you bring up Bukele, that people are asking on Twitter who are from Mexico. Do you think that if Nayib Bukele was put in charge of eliminating the cartels in Mexico, that he would get it done? Yes. Exactly.
Immediately.
So why isn't she doing it?
Yeah, it's a complete mistake from Sheinbaum. Look, her approval ratings have gone up previous to this, I would say. A lot of people thought that she took an approach that was very different than Colombia's president, very different than Maduro. One where she was trying to still sort of show that she was a leader of her country and wasn't going to, por decir, be bullied with President Trump, but at the same time, paying attention to him and cediendo en ciertas áreas. So I think Mexico sort of saw that they had someone at the table that was talking with this president, unlike Petro, who was completely won over, right? In the sense that Trump beat him down with the tariffs. So I think her approval ratings was up. This is such a big mistake, in my opinion. This is the topic, like Daniel was saying, where she could really even elevate her profile even more. It should be very simple. One, honestly, she could easily say, this was not my doing. This is not something that started, at the beginning of her presidency. This is clear evidence that it's not on her hands, in the sense that her party and the previous government, which I know it's allies, but I'm saying she could clean her hands from her personally, and she could step up and say, I'm changing the direction of the country. I'm changing our approach on crime. I'm changing our approach on cartels. Look, I was shocked. This is a new story for me, similar to I guess my algorithm doesn't have it as well. But when I read this story, I read both the CNN piece and the New York Times piece. The amount of detail of the amount of kids, women that were killed, some of them possibly burned, some of them acuchilladas, sort of cut into pieces. I mean, this is stuff that you don't think it's reality. The stuff that we only see in sort of horror movies.
Here's the thing about that, Wadi. It's been going on for quite a while now. This is just sort of a scene where you have a massive manifestation of assassinations and deaths, right? Which is an extermination camp. But they've been killing kids on buses, on kids they've recruited up and down the border area in the state of Nuevo León, where I'm from. They found similar sites, but at a lesser scale. This has been going on for a while, and that's the frustration that Mexicans are feeling. Why don't you deal with the situation? Why don't you go directly at the cartel? You know who they are. You know where they're at. And yet, they flim and flaw. The thing is like, when you try to manipulate the message, the narrative, when you try to hide and cover up, oh man, that's what really upsets people. And that's what's happening right now.
It's sad that we're seeing it in Mexico, and we see it here in the U.S. I think it was last week or the week before that, we talked about Mirka de Llanos, her calling out, really, and not even just calling out, just really reading what the U.S. has said about the situation in Mexico, and then the left completely distorting her message and trying to really drive this campaign against her. Why can't we just look at what's going on, call it as it is, and call of those who have campaigned by saying that they're going to make our lives better, that they're going to make the lives of the Mexican people better, and hold them accountable for what's actually going on? Because we're pointing out the negative things happening in Mexico doesn't mean that it's a dislike of Mexico, the country, or el pueblo de Mexico. It's a dislike to the bad things and the bad people that operate within the Mexican country or within the Mexican people. It's not painting with a bad brush. That's a mistake that I think the government right now, Sheinbaum, is doing. It's a mistake that the left within the country is doing, and also the left here in the United States. Many of who, the folks calling that are doing this, are Hispanics. They're doing it against Hispanics, and they're covering other Hispanics that are doing the wrong in this case. So it's a story, like Daniel said, that it's going to continue to develop. We'll continue to cover here. It's not the last for sure. Sheinbaum is at the beginning of her presidency. She's going to have to continue to deal with these issues, hopefully with solutions.
Oh yeah,
one of the other